Hello, welcome to Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. I am meteorologist Brad Warner. And for this video, we're going to make it kind of quick. We're going to just kind of talk about this next snow that's coming in Wednesday night and lasting into Friday morning. We're going to give you an update on the timing. I'm going to show you how, as we get closer to this next round of snow, how the models have changed and actually pushed the track south as we get closer to this event. And then we're also going to talk about one more snow event that's expected to come over the weekend. And so we're going to start off by showing you how the models have changed dealing with this next round of snow. And so what you're seeing here is the forecasted snow accumulation over a 24-hour period. And this was a model run from Sunday morning. You can see where the main track of snow is across southern portions of South Dakota and Minnesota. Watch as I put this into motion and we get closer to the date. This area of snow actually slides to the south, and as well as this northern portion of the snow as well. And you can see how the models adjust through time, and as we get closer to the event, models have pushed the strongest snow kind of in the far southern portions of Minnesota and into Iowa. And northern portions of North Dakota, Minnesota really aren't expected to see a whole lot at all. So you can see how the model trend was to push that storm system further south and also lessen the amount of snowfall expected with this. And so we're just going to step through the timing here, and by Wednesday morning 6 a.m. what's left of that snow that kind of started into the southwestern portions of South Dakota and spread to the northeast will be across Minnesota by the morning hours. And this is the one that just kind of lingers throughout the day. It doesn't dump a whole lot of snow across Minnesota. Here by 6 p.m. Wednesday evening, you can see just a little bit of light snow left across portions of Minnesota. And then by that point, it starts to ramp up. Our next system comes out of the Rockies and the snow begins to increase down into southwestern portions of South Dakota already. And so as we go through the overnight hours Wednesday night, here is midnight Wednesday night, Thursday morning, 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. And by this point, of course, you're seeing that snow beginning to move into eastern portions of South Dakota and southern portions of North Dakota. Some heavier spots just right around the Black Hills area, and then some spotty moderate areas are possible across central portions of South Dakota as this begins to get going. And so to start off the day on Thursday morning, the bulk of the energy is kind of sitting back into western parts of South Dakota, and that energy shifts eastward throughout the day. So by 9 a.m. and noon on Thursday, by this point already in western portions of South Dakota, the snow begins to lighten up a little bit. But by noon, it begins to increase across the eastern Dakotas, southwestern portions of Minnesota, and perhaps even a little bit of rain mixed in with some of the initial start of this next system into eastern portions of Minnesota. Now, of course, as we go through the afternoon and into the evening hours, that moderate to possibly even heavy snow moves into southern portions of Minnesota. So by 6 p.m. Thursday evening, that snow is really going to be coming down probably in the South Metro down to Albert Lee, Rochester, La Crosse, kind of in that southeastern section of Minnesota. So by this point in the day, as we get into that Thursday evening, that rush hour time frame, things are really going to get messy. Now, the good thing is this moderate snow does move off fairly quickly. By midnight already, that heavier stuff has moved off into Wisconsin and further off to the east, and we're just left with some light snow back to the north and west. One other thing to note here as we get to that midnight time frame, Thursday night, early Friday morning, notice once again the isobars a little bit closer here together, so we'll have a little bit stiffer northeasterly winds blowing that snow around as it falls. So even though the snowfall might lighten up, the winds aren't going to help the situation much. Now, going through the remainder of the night and early Friday morning, that snow tapers off. By 6 a.m. most of the snow is gone. We're left with maybe a little bit of wind gusts down in the southeastern portions of Minnesota, but really by this point the bulk of the energy has left. And boy, let me tell you, this one has been driving me absolutely crazy as to what to actually forecast with this snowfall. So I'm still going with that 4 to 8 range down in the southeastern portions of Minnesota. Then also wrapping around the Black Hills region as well. But then it's a matter of where do I paint this in between, this 3 to 6 area in through here. That really became difficult for me in trying to figure out where exactly to put that. And some of it also deals with the terrain. Some areas don't get quite as much and some get a little more, and that's very much due to just variations within the terrain across this portion of our region. And that's kind of why you see the little donut hole just east of Aberdeen, because of these northeasterly winds running up against the ridge, Probably going to get some drying on the back side of that, so maybe not quite as much snow there. But generally speaking, because the storm sits off to the south and kind of moves in a more easterly fashion, you can see where most of that snowfall occurs, kind of across southern portions of South Dakota and Minnesota as it tracks eastward. And now, of course, I've also shaved off some of these higher amounts on the north end just because of that trend of pushing that storm system further to the south. So I've shaved back some of these 3 to 6 inches to not go as far into North Dakota. And really, even going into Minnesota here, I really shaved that off quite a bit as well. And really, that's largely due to the trends we've been watching as the models continue to push this storm system further to the south before it even gets here. So we've got 3 to 6 inches anywhere within this light purple area. In the blue, we're looking at 1 to 3, and anywhere beyond that, we're looking at a trace to 1 inch. I've been stating before, the winds really won't largely be an issue until we get to Thursday evening here down into the southeastern portions of Minnesota. Some of those northeasterly winds could pick up into southeast, east central parts of Minnesota, blowing some of that snow around. And so I think that's probably going to be the main area of problematic blowing and drifting snow through the overnight hours Thursday night and into Friday morning. But like I said before, by the morning, by 6 a.m. Friday morning, pretty much even that wind is starting to die down there already. So because the weekend days, Saturday, Sunday, do end in Y, there will be more snow in the forecast. And so it looks like the start of this next one really is going to come in Friday night. Closer to midnight, we start to see some increase in that snow activity, particularly across northwestern parts of North Dakota. And that will spread down to the southeast and then eventually carry off to the east. By Saturday at 6 a.m., that snow now beginning to move into southeastern portions of South Dakota. And it is possible some of these areas might see some freezing rain or sleet down in the southern portions of South Dakota as well. There's actually a couple models that have already hinted at that by Saturday morning, you might get some slippery road conditions down here. Now, the other problem you might notice, once again, these black lines, these isobars are close together, which means windy conditions. And actually, these are going to be southeasterly winds coming up and blowing the snow around as it pushes off to the east. By noon on Saturday, we may have a little more intense band across north-central parts of North Dakota, and the remainder of it continues to move eastward. Notice that freezing rain kind of begins to diminish and it turns more into all snow. And we continue to have those good winds out of the southeast, particularly up around that heavier band. So north-central parts of North Dakota, we'll see how this pans out. This is a ways out there, but right now that's kind of the area of concern as we go into the weekend. And then as we go later into the afternoon Saturday and into the overnight hours, it starts to lose some of its punch. You can see the snow begins to lighten up, and even the winds, these isobars here, these lines begin to loosen up a little bit. So even the winds begin to diminish as we get into that evening time. By midnight Saturday night, early Sunday morning, those winds lighten up even more. The snow begins to push more so into eastern portions of Minnesota. By 6 a.m. Sunday, starts to push out of Minnesota, at least western parts of Minnesota, and by noon, pretty much all areas are clear of that snow. And here's the forecast of snow accumulation right now, just to kind of give you a rough idea. Again, this is a ways out there. This could change, but here you can see the main track of snow, really leaving southwestern parts of South Dakota alone, with that heavier stuff possible across north-central parts of North Dakota. Like I said before, early indications are this is going to be the trouble spot. The remainder of the region, as this spreads eastward, accumulations right now, early estimate, somewhere in that 2 to 5 range. So, not what a lot of people want to hear. I know we're getting tired of the S word. I'm getting tired of talking about the S word. People are starting to hate seeing my face on YouTube because I keep talking about the S word. I'm sorry. I'll try not to. I'll try to limit it. In fact, here, early indications are after that snow moves out, we get a bit of a break for a few days. And in fact, it actually looks like it might warm up through the early part of the week. Now, I don't really want to take you much further out beyond midweek next week because it is so far out there. We don't know what's going to happen with this, so it really doesn't pay to take a look. But one thing that does look consistent across the models is next week we're going to be starting off with some warmer air and at least a couple of days of no, that white stuff. So make sure you subscribe down below. We'll keep you updated as this next one comes in for the weekend, and hopefully we do get a break after that. It looks like it will. So hit the subscribe button down below. Maybe you don't want to because you're sick of looking at my face. I understand. I'm sick of giving you bad news, but hey, it is what it is. We're definitely coming in like a lion on March. So hopefully we can go out like a lamb. Well, what more can I say? All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner, and everybody, have a good day.